All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:30. Welcome, everyone. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I do need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74206(1)B.
Enter into executive session per Idaho Code 74206(1)B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We need a roll call vote.
Trustee Bain?
Yes.
Trustee Quimby?
Yes.
Chair Thompson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Grissom?
Yes. All right, so we've come out of executive session. We will move into the discussion items. We have several items on the agenda.
Can you speak up a little bit?
We've come out of executive session. Now we're going into the discussion items. We have several items on the list for discussion. Do we want to go through each line item, or shall we go to the budget worksheet? How would you guys like to proceed with all of this information?
I have some questions about the sports, extracurricular activities. I'm seeing a difference in funding, and I don't understand why Timberlake and Lakeland are, there's more kids at Lakeland, but the spending at Timberlake is more than Lakeland. So I'm just trying to figure that out and why. Because we have more programs and more kids at Lakeland than we do at Timberlake.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the Timberlake coaches are longer term employees that have been here for longer, so their salaries are higher. I think that has to do with the fact that a lot of the coaches at Timberlake are longer term employees, so their wages for coaching are going to be higher. I think that was my perception of what the higher.
I was just looking at miscellaneous items. So Lakeland gets 1376.09, and then if you look at Timberlake's, it's 1695 there.
CFO Grantham, can you explain those miscellaneous columns, please?
Chelsea personally put that spreadsheet together, so she knows it inside and out. So
Perfect.
I can let her explain it. So the miscellaneous items were things that I couldn't quite tie to a specific sport, such as supervision over a weekend for multiple sports, or there's just some random things that can't quite be tied out to one sport individually, but over all sports. That's why it's broken apart, and so it's hitting every single sport. As far as Timberlake having more a cost this year that we were looking at, as opposed to Lakeland, they sent more teams to state, so the cost is higher. So state trips are really what gets those numbers up high. So yes, this reflects last year, but this year could be completely different based on teams going to state.
But overall, based on this spreadsheet, for, it says fiscal year 24, sports and extra co-curricular activities total combined $1,982,779.30. Okay, just confirming that.
Chair Thompson?
Yes.
I did want to point out that this does not reflect the current agreement we have with Northwest Specialty Hospital for the cost share on our athletic trainers and supplies. So that's not reflected in that total number because that didn't happen last year. So it will be,
Actually, on here, for Timberlake, there's an athletic trainer, and for Lakeland, there's an athletic trainer with a dollar amount associated.
we put there this year, but they did have an athletic trainer at Lakeland High School last year as well.
Right?
Yeah, so yes, we're putting them in there.
Okay.
But
The-
it's just not reflecting the cost share with Northwest Specialty Hospital due to the MOU.
Right, but I think I specifically asked that we not add that in. We just put their salary because at some point we may have to capture that back. Okay.
Superintendent Arnold, how far your recommendation for the 7.52, is it everything that we talked about the last meeting that was on that spreadsheet, or it looks like there might be some differences in it, or?
There were a few differences, which in the original sheet they were highlighted for us. So I'm gonna have to go back to my original sheet. So some of the changes, for example, the reduce the building lab techs. We spent a lot of time talking about what positions did we have prior to us increasing the levy from the 5.9 to, or 5.3 to the 8.99. And building lab techs that was one area that we used that dollar amount to increase. But when we went back and looked at what did we have in place for staff, we didn't increase 6, we increased 3. We had 3 already on the team because of just needing people to be able to go into the buildings and take care of computers that weren't working properly. So we reduced a couple of those, and because we did that, we had to add in some additional things to get to the 2 million.
Okay, thank you. And the 4-day work week that we had talked about before, is that in addition to, or is that still further conversation we're gonna have, or did we?
Further conversation that we're gonna have.
Okay.
Because over the last 3 years, we've incrementally made cuts to our budget, almost with this $6 million, but we're going to have to continue to look for cost-saving measures to help us be able to make sure that we can take care of our buildings, because our facilities dollars will go toward property tax relief and we won't have those. So I wanted to be able to talk about the 2 issues separately instead of tying into this.
Okay. And you said that property tax relief, if the levies pass, then that sum we receive from the state would be reduced by?
Somewhere around $2 million. Is last year was 1.7, this year it's 2.3 million, and so it'll be kind of in that ballpark is what we're anticipating.
So, at your, thinking this through, at your 7.52 the board choose to accept that recommendation, and should the voters vote to approve that 7.52, their liability is actually reduced by 2.3.
Well, this year it would be, it will depend on what we get next year, but we anticipate it'll be around 2 million, so yes. Yeah. So the total tax burden for taxpayers should be about 5.2 instead of, or 5.52 instead of the 7.52.
Okay. Yep, and that was the other thing, I'm glad you brought that up about the budget cuts. We are right about with this, right at $6 million over the last 3 years that we have cut from the budget. Unfortunately, there is no state funding for extracurricular activity. So unless the voters fund extracurricular activity, there isn't any. And unless they fund the safety program, there isn't that either. So it's another thing we have to keep in mind. I have no further questions at this time.
Board Chair, CFO Grantham has something she'd like to add, is that okay?
Go ahead. Is that microphone
Thank you,
working?
Trustee.
That
There's
they
so
could,
much pointing
you know,
that out. I
the
wanted
end
to highlight
one, way
part of the
down
reason
there.
that we did have to have budget cuts last year was the change in funding from the state.
Because Jessica would
Previously,
come to the ball, get
they
that
switched
one
from
district.
funding us average daily attendance to enrollment, so we were able to receive, if a student was enrolled in school, we received funding for them. When the switch back to average daily attendance, we lost quite a bit of funding last year with that switch. So a big part of our budget cuts last year was to right size based on the state funding formula with the switch from enrollment back to ADA.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that up.
They gave me another one.
And do we anticipate that the funding will remain the same? It will be ADA for this upcoming year also?
Yes,
Okay, yeah. I'm almost thinking that might become,
permanent.
yes.
Okay, it looks like on your budget recommendation, what was brought to the board back at the end of the December when we had the pick the box. For stipends, extra day, mentors, extra pay, and for extra duties was $180,610.78. You've reduced that on here for a deduction of $90,296. Why is there a reduction? I'm curious.
I have to go back to the main spreadsheet, so.
I can answer that for you really quickly,
Okay.
Chair Thompson. We took out all negotiated agreement segments, and so it's just the additional stipends that come from the district. What do I want to
Yeah,
say?
mentor stipends.
Mentor stipends, extra days, extended contracts. If it was in the negotiated agreement, because that's something that we haven't reopened, we took it out just to be conservative.
Okay.
And then we can address those things through IBB if we need to. Trustee Jones wasn't able to come tonight, but he did send me a text message and ask me to share with the rest of the board that he said he can support this. However, there's one change he was hoping that you guys would consider, and that was to retain the two counselor positions that are on here and to take the dollar amount associated with that and reduce the extracurricular activities $2 million line item by that amount.
When we were first given the sheet, the library leads and library assistants were not part of the boxes we could check, but they're on here now, with dollar amounts associated with them. Those roughly, running around $500,000 for both positions. Has there been any consideration of sharing of personnel to decrease the personnel so that they're shared? Because you're actually asking for us to go put this on the levy to retain all of those, but yet the college and career readiness counselors aren't. So I'm just curious what the justification is. Everybody is going to feel the effects of all the reductions that we do, no matter what the reductions are. I know there is significant concern that there's limited reductions at the district office, which we have asked repeatedly. So there is concern from patrons over that. But if you've got 12 persons for libraries, is there any consideration in sharing librarians or managing librarians in a different way to reduce that?
So we currently, the reduction was the 2 library assistants, and then maintaining the 1 library lead at each building. We could certainly look at that. The concern that I would have is that by reducing the building lab techs and then also reducing librarians at the elementary level, we are now impacting their ability to provide prep time for our elementary teachers because those are part of that specialist rotation. So it would be challenging, I think, to cut both of those programs and still provide that time for teachers.
I'm not suggesting we cut it, I'm suggesting we reduce it.
No, that's what I mean. We're already reducing, so by reducing the 3 full-time lab techs, we're going to have 3 lab techs that are shared between schools, so each lab tech would have 2 schools that they're working in instead of just the 1 that they're doing now. So we've reduced the amount of time that for specialist time for kids with that person. And if we do that again and share library leads between elementary schools and have each one half time at the buildings, we're really starting to impact the ability to make sure that our kids have access to those things and our elementary teachers have their prep time. So that's why we didn't do that. And in the elementary building, well, I think it's important in all buildings, but where we're really focusing on learning to read, it's absolutely critical that our kids have access to libraries, and we need the adult in there managing all of the books.
We have to have libraries. We're required by law to have a library. So
Right.
it's not an option.
Are we funded for the librarians?
We
They're just part of our overall classified.
I'm not saying that we should be eliminating the libraries at all. I'm saying we should maybe adjust it.
No, I understand that. I was just reiterating what Superintendent Arnold said about libraries being important to kids, because we've had other discussions in the past. The libraries we have to have. We are funded for college and career advisors at $127,055. I don't know which college and career advisors we're keeping and which ones are supposedly on the list, but we do get funding from the state for that. I'm not seeing anything that says specifically libraries.
Well, they weren't on the document we had on December 30th, but they were added to the document that we got this time.
Is this on? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think we should eliminate garbage service. I know it's a lot, but then we're gonna task our maintenance people, which are gonna be busy this year because we have a lot of work to do in our buildings. So, I mean, the garbage already overflows as it is. So you'd be running to the dump probably every day. So I wouldn't recommend cutting garbage services. I wouldn't recommend cutting garbage service to the schools. There's just too much trash going out. And then maintenance, we wouldn't want to take away from maintenance, having to go out to the dump every day.
The alternative middle school program wasn't on the document that we had in December, but you've put it on here as something to cut and then gain back within the levy. Why is that?
Again, we just went back to what programs have we added to try to, and then look at the programs that we've added, which ones are really benefiting kids, and this is a program that is definitely benefiting our students, but it's a new program, so that's why it's there.
Okay.
How many students do we currently have?
I think she has 10.
And is that a 12-to-1 ratio also?
Yes. Yep. She usually picks up a couple when we get into second semester. But her students are making tremendous growth and going into high school well prepared to be successful. So we definitely want to keep that program.
Does she currently have an assistant? Because I'm thinking if we hit the 13 mark.
She doesn't have an assistant right now.
And why did we add transportation back in? I thought that was something that was decided that was going anyways.
So on the last levy, it was, we had it on there for $1 million because we spent $1 million more last year than what we got from the state. Justin Baynard, our director, has methodically gone through, and because she's reducing bus routes by 9, she's able to save $500,000 in costs. So instead of the full million, because we did the cost savings, it's just covering the 500,000 that's left. That would be above what we get from the state.
So it was on the sheet last time to cut at 500,000. But then we're adding it back here to add to the levy.
I think on the other sheet it was just cutting 500,000 of the million.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That's
Well, what was on the
released.
sheet was reduced transportation budget $500,000. So,
Right, but it was actually $1 million cost. So we're still doing the reduce, that's still happening, but there's still a $500,000 cost to us that we haven't accounted for that would have to be covered here.
okay.
So if she's reducing bus routes, why aren't those listed in the $2 million cut?
Because I guess we could have, but we spent $1 million more than what we got from the state last year. So we just started with what are we getting from the state, and then because we made the cuts, we still have 500,000 we have to account for. But we're $500,000 closer to what the state gave us. So if I feel like if we put it under the cuts, it might inflate the number in a way that
Okay. No, I get
that's
it.
not actual.
The two nurses that you have listed for the levy, that's actual nurses, not like a K-Tech program.
Correct. And just for clarification, the two that are here are the two positions that were added. So it keeps the staff of 6 nurses intact, which is what we need right now with our student population.
So on the spreadsheet last time, we had identified nearly $1 million in retirements and resignations. How is that shown on, is that part of the $2 million reduction, retirements and resignations?
No, we actually put it up under the 7.52 million to retain those positions. And the reason for that is more than half of the retirements are at the high school level, and we know we have to replace some of those, many of those, and then more than half of the Category 1 positions are at the elementary, and more than half of what's at the elementary are K1, 2, 3 positions that we know we have to replace because we can't have just one first grade classroom in a building. We have too many kids. And so it didn't make sense to put the savings, to put it down as a cut when we know we have to replace those people, so we put them up under the 7.52.
I believe last year, in doing the budget, we reduced paraprofessionals, and now you're asking to reduce 6 more paraprofessionals. That wasn't on the spreadsheet that we received in December, and now it's on here to reduce 6 classified paraprofessionals for 191,429.
So we have some resignations, and the work that our federal programs director is doing with her staff is to the work that that we've been talking about, looking toward a behavior program, but where we're moving away from a one-on-one with kids to maybe a two-on-one or a three-on-one, and there are some places where we can do that. So she felt like we didn't have to refill those positions.
So these are all SPED paraprofessionals?
I believe so, yep. But we overspend in special education, and so we're trying to look at ways to be more efficient with our staff so that we aren't overspending as much.
Right, and last year when that was brought out that we had overspent the prior year, we did make reductions, and now we're making more paraprofessional reductions.
Yeah, we didn't actually eliminate paraprofessional positions last year. We just moved the all of the people who work, the classified people who work within special education, into the same column on the salary schedule. We had some resignations that we did not need to fill because either kids graduated from high school or had moved, and so that child wasn't there, so the position wasn't needed. But we didn't make big sweeping cuts to the paraprofessionals. It was really just student by student whether or not we needed those positions back.
On your reduction for counselor staff, 2 full-time people, which I understand Trustee Jones wants to take money out of the athletic allotment. Is that elementary or secondary?
Secondary.
Didn't you say those were funded? Didn't you say those were funded by the state, the career counselors?
There's a portion that we receive from the state, and that amount was 127 or 172. Let me look back here. College and career advisors and student mentors, $127,055 is what they give us for that category.
So it's 5,000 short based on this reduction.
Yeah.
Where are we at with NIC and their program in funding?
I'm meeting with President Swain tomorrow morning.
From my understanding, we received that college and career advising. We have to have a program. It doesn't mean that those funds are dedicated specifically for college and career advisors. They can be, those dollars could be used for counselors that could do college and career advising as well. So,
Yeah, I don't, that's just how they list it. When
Yeah.
they dish out the money, that's just the category they gave it to us, and they labeled it just that, college and career advisors and student mentors is how they labeled it.
Dean Grissom, Trustee Bean is correct that it is meant to be used for counselors. We just happen to have those positions that are specific, let's say college and career. So it is meant to be used for counseling staff with that purpose.
Well, however you want to interpret it, I got it directly from the Director of
Yep.
Finance of the State Department of Education. This is what she gave me. This is how it's,
It's a special
Divvy up,
distribution,
so-
so they provide to us, yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's the line item, and that's what they labeled it, so. That's the pot they give us.
So when we just, so everybody's kind of on the same page, when we're going back and forth between the document that we worked on December 30th and then the one that we have in front of us today, The work on December 30th was to get to the full $9.52 million worth of cuts, which is why everything is a cut. And so then when we put together the recommendation, we went back to your work and looked at which of these things that would be cuts are important to our kids and parents, and are things that we think we should recommend that we support with the levy. So we did try to take from this document the work that you guys did.
I'm a little challenged by that because I know the board specifically tried to focus on everything that would not impact student education. I know we talked about K-Tech, we did not want that on the list, but you put it on the list and then want to add that to the levy dollars. Is that correct?
We can.
This is your
Yes.
recommendation, so
No,
that's, I'm just
I
getting
know. And the
clarification.
reason, the reason that it's there is we don't get money from the state for K-Tech. That was a decision that 3 districts made coming together.
Right.
I just believe in this program, and I think it's really important for our kids, but it is money that we don't get from the state, and so
Okay.
that's why it's there. I
Okay.
think it's important for the patrons to know that we do pay a good chunk of money to support that program, but we don't get funded for it.
Well, and I also know that the advanced learning program and the elementary certified teacher specialists, I don't believe we marked either one of those, and you're asking for those to be put on the levy as well?
Again, because those were positions that were added when we increased the levy. So prior to the increased levy, we didn't have those. We had very little specialist time at the elementary level, and our elementary teachers got very little prep time prior to the increase in the levy dollars.
The safety line item on your recommendation, the $827,000, does that include the crossing guards and everything that we paid to, say, Bradford?
I don't remember. I'm going to defer to Justin on that one.
Trustee Grissom, that does include the crossing guards. It doesn't include everything we pay to Raptor. We get a safe and drug-free schools grant that we're able to utilize to help pay that portion for the SRO that we have with the city of Raptor. So yes, it includes the SRO contracts for Cooley County, our district safety specialists, the crossing guards, and it also includes some budget for supplies for that program. So ammo, appropriate work attire, professional development for those individuals.
Okay, so on, back to that spreadsheet that we did with the board, to come up with a number, the total there for the resource officers, the district safety specialists, and the crossing guards was $665,385. So I was just trying to figure out where the extra $200,000, what was that for, what made up that difference?
Some of it is for the supplies, because we were just looking at personnel with the previous, and then some of it is if we're able to hire in-house and maybe reduce one of the SRO contracts or hire two, it's to give us some room to do that.
They added to this, that was not on the one we had in December, the safety and security operational budget of $162,405. And if you do add up the resource officers, the ADSSs, the budget, and the crossing guards, it does come up to $826,789.
question on sports again, sorry. Why do we pay benefits for salaries?
Why do we?
Yeah,
Because we're legally required to.
but coach off the street doesn't get benefits.
The type of benefits that you're referring to are actually Social Security, Medicare, federal
Okay.
taxes, Idaho taxes.
They're the
Oh.
required percentages.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
just
not-
wondering.
They're
it's
more
not
tax.
Not medical benefits.
They're more,
Okay.
With respect to the clubs that are on the sports breakout, the board specifically said that clubs were not to be funded at all by district money. We've got clubs that, $972.75 for Timberlake Middle School, or no, Timberlake High School, $947.33 for Timberlake Middle School, and $938.07 for Lakeland High, none at Lakeland Middle School. Is there a reason why clubs are still being funded by the district?
The clubs are FFA, so that it's considered a.
why, no,
No.
FFA is a separate line item.
Yeah.
Oh, let me go back. To the other document.
Those numbers are based off of last year's budget, correct? Not this year's?
That is correct. Some of them are based off of last year, so there were some clubs that ended last year. There were some very minimal things that fall under a group that we, maybe poor choice of the word club for it. It's just, we kind of grouped them all together. I can have Chelsea explain the methodology, talk to me, methodology that she used for that. I don't have much more information to give besides what Jess had. There were a few minor payments that we made out last year. What I think was happening was clubs were ending, so it wasn't like we were paying something over the entire year. I would have to go back to my spreadsheet. I don't have my computer with me on what I built this on to give you the exact details of who's all lumped into those minimal numbers. But they're all ended at.
Okay.
Chelsea, for the clubs, is that related to some of the extra pay for extra duty? No, so something different, okay. You're fine.
So you're not asking for funds to maintain the summer school program? That's in the negative?
We did not, we didn't put it in there, simply because we were able to get to the 7.52, but it is, that's a program obviously that we need to continue. And we could have put it in there and just pulled something else out.
Well, if we're not going to put it in there, do we have a way to at least bring it in line to a zero balance so that we're not going in the red on it?
Yes, so we can either do what was proposed, which is to completely consolidate and have all of the summer school run through Paul at Mountain View, and everything's on Play-Doh, or Shannon had some ideas of ways to minimize the cost by bringing the two sites together, and instead of having two administrators, one administrator, and fewer teachers, so we can get in line with, so it can be a budget neutral program.
So you are working on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Chair Thompson, can I add to that?
Please.
We do receive some state discretionary funds, and that does help offset. This was a really rough estimate. That spreadsheet that I gave you related to summer school, it was my best guess of being able to say, we get this many support units related to summer school, which relates to this portion of the salary-based apportionment. And as we all know, the salary-based apportionment is based on the weighted average of the state career ladder teacher salaries. So again, it's never meant to cover one-to-one. So we do use some of our state discretionary funds to help fund the rest of that, to kind of cover the difference like we do with most of our other salaries. I do think it's important, we talked about this at length, which is why it didn't end up back on the sheet, that students continue to come to summer school in person. Not everyone learns well in an online environment, and it can have a major impact on our graduation rates and our student success. So we felt it's very important just to have that as an option still.
Well, no, definitely. The board, when we spoke in December, did not want to go to just a one methodology, that we wanted to keep in-person learning because not everybody can learn online. Are there further discussions we'd like to have on any of the documents that were presented?
I would like to just publicly thank CFO Grantham, Chelsea Persley, and Brooke Cunningham, because putting together the documents that are here tonight was a huge lift with very little time, and so I know those ladies worked all weekend to get that all done, so I do appreciate their diligence in making sure you had what you needed to be able to.
Right, if there's no further discussion on the discussion items, we can move into the action items. We do have the superintendent's recommendation. Our recommendation is to run the levy for $7.52 million with a reduction of $2 million from the 9.52 that failed. I will open it up to have, I guess, further conversation on the superintendent's recommendations.
I appreciated Trustee Jones's concern regarding the counseling position. So I would say, and as well as Trustee Quimby's recommendation to put the garbage services back in. So putting those two back in totals $161,529. I would be willing to support this $2 million by giving each of the high school principals the leeway to cut in their schools a position, whether through attrition or whatever, but cutting 85,000 out of each high school to put those two items back in.
How much is our hard to fill stipends?
I believe they're 35.
35, so it's $122,000, and that's every year.
Yes.
Trustee Quimby, that hard to fill stipend is a double-edged sword. If we take that away and we lose those qualified people that are in those positions that work directly for the district, we would potentially have to go out to contracted services, which is a lot more than the teaching position plus that stipend. So I do want to say that could hurt us if we remove those.
I'm just asking.
No, appreciate your question. I just wanted to clarify.
Also, I'd like to see, I'm not talking about, I gotta be careful here, don't want to get in trouble. Some of the other stipends that we have in the district, I think it would be smart of us to freeze stipends for leadership and extra stuff. I'm not talking about the MA stipends or the BA stipends or anything like that, masters. But if you have an additional duty, then maybe each person that does extra duties can work it out with their principal, that they can leave early on Friday or work it out inside their building, so it saves the district more money.
Trustee Quimby, and with those ones, I hear what you're saying. Fully understand. We left those off purposely because a lot of those are part of the negotiated agreement, and so we wanted to be respectful to that process and bring that through IDB.
Okay.
The number that we had on the hard to fill stipends was $160,956.68. And that is, like Both Graham said something, all of those we would have to bring up at IDB. And the other thing that's sort of hard too is that what we're really talking about is next year's school year, but where the numbers we're looking at are based upon this and prior years. So like part of it we haven't even got to yet.
Are the hard to fill stipends in the negotiated agreement? I thought that was a district building decision. It's in the agreement, okay.
We were very intentional to only bring stipends that were not part of the negotiating agreement in this recommendation, like I said, to be respectful of the IDB process.
I guess part of what we'll have to keep in mind, and I know that Superintendent Arnold brought this up, CFO Grant, I mean, everybody sort of alluded to it, that it's going to be an ongoing process. Like we can't, because we're stuck between 2 years.
Right.
So here's the proposed cut now, here's things we're thinking of in the future, but obviously keep working. And then what does it look like if we end up in the same place again?
It's very accurate. The budget process is going to be fun. Hoping for JFAC to be nice and favorable to schools, but
And to move quickly.
and to move quickly. Yes, not like last year. But you're very accurate, Trustee Grissom. Just because we're having these conversations now doesn't mean that come May we're going to have to make additional cuts if the funding doesn't come through like we would like it to.
I would like to see 3 more positions reduced at the district office.
3 more?
Yes. That has been a cry that the district office reduction is minimal compared to what we're asking each building to endure. And I just respectfully ask that we acknowledge that in a tangible way.
So we have, when you look at the district office group on the website, we have special education is kind of under the district office, but they're their own department. We have 11 people at the district office in different positions that support all of the staff, the students, and the parents. I honestly don't know what positions we would cut.
Well, I think you're going to need to review that. If you
What's
all,
your suggestion? What positions in the district office are you suggesting that we cut?
okay, if you guys are going to shout out at us, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Okay, it's not appropriate and it needs to stop, as with the laughing, etc. This is extremely hard. I would much rather, when we're asking for principal assistants, college and career counselors, all these other positions to go by the wayside, but we're only willing to cut 1 person at the district office, I think we really need to consider what we're looking at. So that's why I bring that up.
And that's why I'm asking you what your suggestion is.
Again, we're not having a conversation.
Every morning I go to the gas station, every morning I ask people what they think of the levy. And almost everybody says they voted no. So they want to see cuts, and the cuts they want to see are admin. You know, I don't want to cut anybody's job, but we got to do something. You know, we got to show the public that we're trying. Because I'm afraid it might not pass again. You know, and then we're really hurting. And so, you know, I wish everybody would just try to work together and do our best. We're trying up here. We're not trying to cut anything. We don't want to cut teachers. We don't want to cut counselors. So we have to cut somewhere. You know, we need to stop double routing kids. People are upset about that. People are upset about a lot of things. And a lot of people in this community are hurting. You know, there's people that can't afford their houses. But nobody talks about them. And we're up here representing them and you guys. And so just keep that in mind, because these attacks on people that voted no, it's got to stop. Okay? They have a reason why they voted no, and we need to respect that. And that's all I got to say.
Yes.
To add to that conversation, as Superintendent Arnold indicated, we have multiple programs that operate out of the district office. The district office support staff is 11, with 1 person being cut. That brings us down to 10, which is a 10% reduction. Those 10 people that are left are the superintendent, assistant superintendent, HR, finance, and an executive assistant. I'm not. I hear you. I do hear you. I'm trying to help educate the community. I don't know. I personally do not know where to cut from the district office, from that small team. If you look at any other district that's even remotely our size, there's more people in the district office. We do a lot with very, very few people. This conversation all the way around is extremely difficult. I have a hard time asking to take $85,000 from both of our high schools at the same time when I feel like we can cut that $150,000 from athletics. We put
$2 million to cut anything. We're actually adding things back to their program. So there is gate revenue that they have, there is concessions revenue that they generate that we're not asking them to spend by asking for $2 million. So we very easily could put that $150,000 and pull it from athletics. That's not an issue.
But what I am, I guess, challenged by is I know our athletic programs for the last at least 3 years have been limping along trying to make the dollars work that they get, which isn't enough. And we just were willing to run out and try for 9.52 without even an accurate number for that large program that covers both schools. And the students have cried from the rooftop saying, do what you can to keep this. So I don't think it would behoove us to say we're going to ask for $2 million and now we're just going to start reducing from it before we've even gotten there.
I do hear you, but for this, the increase in the levy, we didn't cover as much as we did. We've actually increased what we cover for the schools, which is great. I mean, it's fantastic that we've been able to do that with the levy, but and I should say just athletics because it's co-curriculars too. And I always forget to say that, and I was reminded this week that I need to remember it's co-curriculars and athletics, not just athletics. But I'm hearing what you're saying, but we did use levy dollars to provide more for them when there was more of a share in the past. This is the first year that we're asking them to help share in that cost using their gate revenue. If they even have to at that point. They're on track to potentially have to do that. Officials have gone up, absolutely. There's other costs, but I think that there could be more of a share between the schools and the districts for what we're covering.
Have we thought about charging City of Rathdrum to use our facilities? Because
we have an MOU in place with them right now, but that's always negotiable every year.
right, well, it can be withdrawn at any time. So-
Actually, I don't know that we even have it in place because it's never come back for a signature.
I just don't see how watering our football field is equal to them using our facilities. And we have to clean up and everything like that, so.
I don't disagree with you.
And then we need to realign all the coaching stipends because we can't have the head football coach making the same amount as the golf coach who has 5 or 6 kids. And their season's, whatever, a month and a half long. We have to realign everything to the other districts. You can't do that. It's not the same. You can't have a football coach who puts in all summer and all fall making exactly the same as a golf coach or a track coach or a cross-country coach.
And I think those are all things we will be looking at within the negotiated agreement. So when it is that time, we will definitely have to specify the expectations on the coaching salaries. What is the mechanic retirement savings that you've listed here for a $2 million cut?
It's 13,000.
Yeah, it's just
Or
the,
13,000?
it's the difference between where he is on the salary schedule and where we would be bringing somebody in. Just, he's been here so long, so.
So we have a gentleman retiring and we're going to bring someone in and their pay will be less?
Yes.
Okay.
The salary savings.
That would be a better title for it.
What'd you say?
That would be a better title
Salary
for it.
savings, yes.
Yes.
Salary savings?
Mhm.
Change that?
recommendation?
I'm good.
No.
If anybody wants to bring forward a motion.
I would move to approve the superintendent's recommendation with the changes I suggested.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. On that, motion fails. Mr. Jones is not here this evening. He is not here to cast a vote. He needs to be present. He's not here.
I think if we brought to the public the things that receive no funding, we might have a better chance. If we bring forth the safety, the sports, the other programs that you have on there, I would include, nurses and safety. And we reduce, more in line with the spreadsheet that we went over. So basically that came back to, if we just took the things that got no funding whatsoever, was $3 million, 2.793, you might as well call it 3 by the time you add everything back, and that would cover the sports and the safety, the athletic trainers, resource officers, crossing guards, and the nurses. And the K-Tech program, obviously there's no funding for that.
When is Jones going to be back? We need him to be here to vote. I understand he's got his medical issues right now, but this is really important for him to be here. And if you guys can't just let it
I'm sorry, but you can't be speaking to us like that. This is not an open forum for you to have a conversation.
Yes, soon.
So basically it looks like the first page.
Lisa, when Trustee Jones spoke with you, did he mention anything about calling in or attending tonight's meeting in any fashion?
I didn't actually talk to him. I just received a text about the
Okay.
request about the counselors.
All right, thank you.
So what was your recommendation, Ramona? Or were you making a motion, or?
Well, that was my recommendation, so I can make a motion with that if we, move to, I believe it's the first page, pretty much covers, all of those programs we talked about. The safety, K-Tech, everything inside the safety and the sports programs. Or extracurriculars, I guess, which would include all of them.
So is that on the budget worksheet? Is that what you're talking about? Are you looking at the budget worksheet?
I was looking at the ballot language, but that has the same, I think the same information on it, yes. So if you look at the draft ballot language, the first page of the PDF has $2 million for the co-curriculars, $827,000 something for safety, and then the $348,000 for K-Tech.
The 500,000 for transportation is a shortfall. Are you not wanting to include that?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to go back to the spreadsheet that we did speak about and the things that we chose there, which did not include, it didn't include any of the salary-based apportionment. It didn't include cutting any of the category ones. And I know the funding is here on this, but when we made those choices based upon what was given to us, and then if we put those things back on the levy that weren't funded, we would have been fine. The choices that I had marked gave us $123,000 more than the 9.52, and in that did not include cutting any of those teaching positions. So that would make the levy $3 million, a little more if we add K-Tech to it. But there again, we didn't choose K-Tech last time either to cut. So the ballot language doesn't match.
Trustee Jones is calling Lisa's phone. Do we want to?
Yes.
Board Chair?
I'm going to end the meeting if they keep calling. So, you can answer the phone. It's already failed.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, do you need my vote?
We're working through it right now.
Okay. You want me to stay on?
That's up to you.
Yeah, I'll stay till you get it done.
You might let him know that he's on speakerphone.
Yeah, you're on speakerphone.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now that Bob is here, I will re-motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation with the suggestion of adding back the counselors and the garbage service and allowing each high school principal to reduce their staff, whether through attrition or whatever, by $85,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 There's aye. Three in favor, two opposed. Motion carries. Moving on to the draft ballot language.
The draft ballot language is in line with the superintendent's recommendation, correct?
Yes.
Minus
You just have to reflect the changes that were
we
in
just
the
need to
motion.
reflect the changes that trustee Chris decided which I can do.
So I would move to approve the draft ballot language as presented with the changes that were made in the levy recommendation motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Three in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries. On that, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. It is 7:20 p.m.